All right, cool. Hello, everybody. This is Nyx. This is a current player for the brand new Disrupt Gaming lineup that is currently in the North American League that'll kick off in a couple of weeks, formerly of Team Reciprocity, Disrupt Gaming, and SK Gaming over the course of his tenure in Rainbow Six. He's asked to come on today to do a couple of things. There was actually a lot of things that we wanted to talk about. I think his career is one that has a lot of things that we can look back on from a career retrospective perspective, I suppose. He's been through a lot of things. There's a lot of places that he's been to, so I think just by himself he's already a very interesting character to get to know if you haven't already. But we also want to dive in specifically to his time on Team Reciprocity, which was one of the things that was brought up at an interview that I did a couple of days ago with former fellow teammate FoxA. Just trying to see if we can't maybe get a little bit more on that situation, as well as talk about the current situation within Disrupt Gaming and with one player in particular. So, Nyx, thanks for wanting to show up. I really appreciate you wanting to do this with me.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jacob. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, of course, dude. So, just so we can probably get a little bit more backstory for people who probably aren't as familiar with you as maybe they should be. I think the general consensus around Disrupt Gaming is that, oh, it's a brand new org, so it's a brand new team. Let's see if we just kind of can't get to know them better. So, yeah. Why don't we start back all the way where your career within, I guess, the Pro League spectrum started, both pre-DarkZero. How did you get involved with the guys who would eventually form that initial DarkZero lineup?
So, obviously, when I was trying to make waves in the competitive scene when I was younger, 17, 16, I was playing on teams. Excuse me, I was playing on teams like Hydra and Polar Ace and Nomads, stuff like that, which were teams that had aspirations of making it to Challenger League once we were able to, due to age restrictions. But I always kind of wanted to get my name out there. And having a cousin in the scene being hot and cold, I definitely had an advantage, I'd say, because I already had that connection that was well built in the professional scene already. So I definitely would say that helped me, and it was a benefit for sure. That being said, when I turned 18, I think SK was having issues with who they wanted to maintain as their main fifth. They were playing with Waffle at the time, and not to say Waffle was a bad player or anything like that, but they felt like he wasn't what they needed as a player. They needed more an aggressive player that can make plays but also wants to learn, and someone that they can mold, and they really saw that in me, so that they gave me a chance. I got picked up on SK for actually support roles. That's one thing that really confused me that people don't really talk about, is I got picked up on SK to play Maestro Echo. That was my main role. That's what I played. And I played throughout my entire first season of Pro League. I was a Maestro Echo main, and I think on attack I played Dokkaebi and just more supportive ops. And from my perspective, that first season went really well. And from there, I just kind of started my competitive career, I guess.
So all of that time spent with SK, which was, I'm trying to remember the exact timeline for how long you spent, but all of that led into what eventually transitioned into the roster that became DarkZero. So when DarkZero came in, hadn't signed the team ever before. It was the first time launching some sort of enterprise like that. And everyone is I think it's still really, really funny that a lot of people are well, there was a time I maybe kind of remember back when Jarvis was on DarkZero, and almost no one remembers back when Pojo Man was also on DZ. That was such a very, very long time ago. But that was Jarvis, Pojo Man, you, Hot and Cold, and I am blanking on who the fifth was. Mint, that's right. Wow. Yeah. This is something I should really know. And then Bacon coming in as coach as well. So that was what formed that initial core. When you're transitioning into the lifestyle at DZ, did SK have a team house, by the way?
No, we did not. Okay,
so when you're moving into DarkZero, that's a way more I guess intensive environment. And when it comes to how you were preparing and getting coached up and scrimming and whatnot when you played for SK, was it the same kind of thing when you moved over to DarkZero, or when you went to DarkZero, was that really the first time that you started to cement the what we call the very strategic heavy playbook that we know DZ uses now?
Yeah, I think SK and DZ were definitely different. So DZ as an organization is super hands-on and super supportive, right? So they obviously only are invested into one game, which means that they can put all their focus and attention to this one team. So they're super helpful and super supportive in what we needed. when we got into the team house on DZ, like our practice regimen and our practice schedule was like completely different than when it was on SK. Like back in Pro League, like during, I can't remember what season it was for SK. I'm really bad with the seasons, but when I was on SK, like basically like the practice regimen was like for every team in Pro League was just like wake up at like time for scrims, you play scrims, you talk about it a little bit, maybe you VOD review here and there, you dry run, that's it. But like on DZ, like we had like an entire like work schedule. Like we wake up at this time, we have morning workouts, you dry run for 4 hours, you VOD review for 3 hours, and then you're scrimming for another 4. So like it was 8-hour days or 9-hour days, 6 days a week. And I definitely think like in the beginning, that's like what pushed us to be such a good team, because we were practicing so much and we were improving at such a rapid rate that like we just, I don't know. I really think kind of the organization is what helped us do that. If we didn't have DZ, we wouldn't have been able to do it.
Did you like the way that you were playing for SK and having played in all of those, the underage teams and all the teams that you played with for Pro League? Did you like playing like your first 6 months with SK a little bit more so, or did you like your first 6 months with DarkZero more than your first 6 months with SK?
I mean, you know, nostalgia is going to say like, obviously my very first Pro League game is going to be a memory that I'll always have, except that memory is getting slammed by Noble. But, you know, so that was, it's not really a good memory, but you know, my first Pro League season with SK is probably something that will stick with me for the rest of my life, as well as, you know, my entire time as a Siege player. But definitely I would say my time with SK is probably more memorable, just because like that was my very first games like on a competitive setting. Like
right.
That.
And you were also sticking with mostly the same core that you had from like very beginning on SK, and then when you move into DarkZero, you didn't have a whole bunch of roster transfers happening at the same time. So you still got to stick with the same core people, and it was still pretty familiar, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, on SK, you know, transitioning into DarkZero, like we were a family. Like those guys were, you know, obviously legitimately like family with hot and cold on the roster, obviously, but in a non-literal sense, like these guys are my brothers, so it was definitely easy to make that transition for sure.
Gotcha. And when you were trying to, I talk about the transition into DarkZero a lot, because we have this idea about the way that DZ plays that is kind of playbook step by step. So I don't necessarily want to dive into the strat side of DZ too much, but that does play a factor in the way that the team plays, the way that you play specifically, and what I kind of want to get into later as we go through is whether or not that had an impact on the way that you wanted to play when you've gone to teams after DarkZero, because now there's two different examples of that, and we can kind of see if it carries over. So when you're doing stuff on DarkZero, whether it be in preparation for Pro League or preparation for a LAN, how much do you think that idea of play-by-play, step-by-step, do you think applies to the way that DarkZero manages their scrims and practices? Yeah,
DarkZero definitely takes like counter-stratting and like VOD reviewing to another level. So like even more so now because they have BC as their head coach. So BC is like extremely smart at like some of the stuff that he comes up with, and some of the strategies that he like makes is like they're extremely smart and really good. So when you have that amount of brain power on your strategic like side with, you know, with Bacon, with BC, and with their analyst Decentral, like they have a lot of power that would just be like, we would just be wasting it if we just didn't come up with new strategies all the time. So for the most part, like every single time we'd go into a scrim or a match or anything like that, I would say we have counter-stratted and we have fully stratted, and we know exactly what we're going to do every single time. We're never going into a round like, I don't know, we're going to see what happens. Like we're just going to go off the fly. Like DarkZero runs a strategy or a counter-strat every single round, no matter what.
Gotcha. So you went to 2 LANs with DarkZero in the end. That was the Season 9 Milan Finals, and then the Season 10 Tokoname Finals. You obviously, I'm assuming, would like ramp up the way in which you guys would practice for everything, the way that you would prepare, because you're heading into a scenario where you know your opponent, a good 2 to 3 weeks before even flying out, right? And then to make that very quick transition into trying to play 2 more of them if possible. How was that process different from the way that you guys would prep for Pro League?
For Pro League, it was different because for Pro League, like you would only have sometimes a day to prep for a team, because you would play Monday, then you'd play Wednesday. So you had to prep on that Tuesday just against the next team that you're going to play against. So given the short time span, it really wasn't more about like fully changing our strategy and counter-stratting what they're doing. It's more so like VOD reviewing and looking at tendencies and like adapting to those tendencies. So we're not creating new strategies. We're just being aware of like the things that they like to do. While going to LAN events, like you have so much time that you can like become, you can in like 3 weeks you can become a brand new team. You could change all of your strategies and go into this event with stuff that people have never seen before, and like that's like brand new, and like that makes you like a really, I mean, if you like, we did that for Japan for FaZe, and well, I wouldn't say like completely revamped, but we added a lot of new stuff for FaZe and Airwolf, and I definitely think it was effective.
Got it. Having said all of that now, how, even though it's a brand new training regimen, you're trying to see if you can get used to a new system, how much did you like what DZ was doing to advance the way you guys were playing?
Me personally, I think I think they have the right idea. I think that they try to adopt traditional sports ideas into esports too often. I don't think that there's some traditional sports like mentalities that are applicable to esports, because I think it's different. In terms of one of BC's biggest things was he would always talk about emotions, and I'm a very emotional person.
Yeah.
So I on stage I like to get energetic. I like to get hype. That's kind of just like who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I would have a lot of conversations with BC, and he would always talk about like, if you can level your emotions, you'll become a better player. Like he thought emotions in esports was like something that shouldn't be a thing, and I kind of disagreed with that idea, because like I think emotions like can have negative impacts, but at the same time they can have like very positive impacts too. So I saw his point of view, but I definitely would say that for me, like, there's no chance I would be able to shut it off.
And in terms of working together with everybody all in the same facility, different scrim schedules, different ways of working around the clock, because esports is a 24/7 business, that was all something that you were still fine with moving in?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think that a team house, to be a top level team, I think you kind of need a team house in my perspective. Like, if you don't have it, you're just at such a disadvantage. Like, because you get instant feedback with your teammates. You're constantly bonding with your teammates. You're constantly coming up with new ideas and talking to each other, because even if you're just eating dinner, like you're not going to be texting and talking about Siege while you're eating dinner. But if everyone's here and you're eating dinner, like you could just be talking about a new castle strat or a new, something off the top of your head. So you're constantly generating new ideas, and it's just more beneficial for the team.
Got it. So overall, something that you definitely enjoyed after SK to move into this kind of format and be with them for over a year at that point. Something you really enjoyed.
For sure.
Sweet.
Definitely.
All right. So then tell the story about how things with DZ kind of fell off the rails a little bit. Now, this is something a bit of a leading way to go into it, I know. But just for preference, I don't necessarily know if there was absolutely no idea or talk about you no longer being on DarkZero until the offer for Skies or that trade offer came in, like way later.
Yeah.
So if there was something that happened beforehand, if you want to illustrate that, go ahead.
No, that's fine. It was definitely tough, right? So from my perspective, when I was getting cut, after I got cut, they told me that they were actually trying to find replacements for me ever since Rally. So that was for about 3 months that they were trying to replace me, which definitely sucked. It was upsetting to hear that. A lot of people like to discuss my time on DarkZero and say like, oh, like Nyx, like he trolled, like took an MA finals, and like just they always like to put it a lot of like me getting cut towards like my performance in the team.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think that that's like why you would get cut is like because of performance. But if you actually go back and like, this is why I don't really talk about this a lot, because I don't like to sound arrogant or flaunt anything. But like if you go back and look at my stats on DarkZero, like I had very good stats. Like season 9 and season 10, I was plus 26 both seasons, and like I had really good stats for an entry. But going into LAN finals, I definitely like struggled a little bit. Took it on my finals. I think I played okay against FaZe, okay against Airwolf, and I played really bad against Navi. But that's not why I got cut. I didn't get cut because my performance in like directly. I got cut because the team felt like I had they classified it as attitude issues, and they classified it as me wanting to, I don't know the best words to say it. So, basically, whenever things went wrong in the team, we would always be very expressive about it, right? We would always talk about it and be very direct with each other.
Yeah.
And whenever we'd lose, I would always have opinions on how we can become better. And I felt like a lot of the time, like the management, like the hierarchy, like Mint and Bacon, because they're the IGL and the coach at the time, they really didn't want to listen to my ideas because they had things that they wanted to do. But I felt like my ideas were like the thing that would help us become the best. Like I really felt like I had like strong opinions, and I think me pushing those opinions came off as like me wanting to lead the team or like me wanting to just like change everything, and it was taken the wrong way, and it definitely like negatively impacted like my time, like it like in like caused them to like wanted to cut me. So
Okay.
I know that like may have been worded really poorly, but I was trying to like find the right words to obviously like not bash them or not,
Sure.
cause drama or because like it was nothing against them, and it was just they felt like it was a business decision that they felt like it was best for the team. So
And you were still kind of in, I guess what FoxA called a couple days ago, more of a follower role. Still, like, kind of at that point because of the way that DarkZero does things. Was it difficult to try to like express something that was against a game plan in a way?
yeah, definitely, because so I don't know. Obviously, my IGLing experience, I know we'll probably get into this later. My IGLing experience wasn't very. I didn't have a lot of experience going into Pro League. I was the IGL for Hydra, and people were gonna be like, "Who the hell is Hydra?" But that was an underage team that I played for that was pretty good. And I even though I didn't have IGL experience at the top level, like I was confident in my ability to make calls. And I think sometimes my arrogance, like I'm not that I'm an arrogant person, but I would like when I was just sitting there and I was listening to ideas, I would just be like, dude, I think my calls are better here. And like I think that like I expressed that, and it definitely affected like what they thought me, and like in terms of like me and wanting like me on the team, you know what I mean?
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So it was definitely that was unfortunate, but one thing if I can go back and kind of reflect on my time on DarkZero and figure out like what I would do differently. I had a lot of talks with Zach, the owner. And Zach would always tell me like, Nyx, like you gotta just listen, you gotta just follow. Like I know you want to be a leader, like inherently you are a natural leader, but like you gotta like in this situation, like you gotta just follow. And I didn't take that advice 100%. I took it for maybe like 2 weeks, and then I would kind of revert back to like wanting to make calls because like inherently like I think I'm just like that like leader type of like person. Like it's just kind of like how I am. So putting like being in a follower position sometimes like I can definitely do it. Like I want to be in a follower. Like, if I need to be in a follower position, it's super easy. I will do it. But I want to be expressive and I want to convey ideas. And I felt like I wasn't able to really do it on DZ. I was more told like just be quiet.
Okay, but even sorry, when you had those conversations with Zach, was that around the time that you said Raleigh was around the time that they were thinking about potentially looking for a replacement? Was it around then, or was that like way later, like closer to Japan time?
In terms of like
in terms of the timing of when you were trying to see if you could still like adapt to that follower philosophy.
Oh, it was more so towards the time of Japan for sure.
Okay, so when that trade offer comes about for Skies after Tokoname, which I think was like directly after the Tokoname finals were over and done with, I'm trying to remember. I think Rec mentioned in a documentary like series that they put out after the fact that it might have even been like while everybody was still in Japan. I could have my timing wrong on that though. And when that comes around, what's your initial reaction to how, like, to it being Skies, I guess? Like, Skies coming into DZ and you going to Rec. What was your initial thought when you heard that that was a possibility?
Yeah, I was definitely confused because, as we discussed, just a little bit ago, I was mainly cut because I wanted to IGL and I wanted to all the stuff we talked about, and they told me that they were trading me for Skies and I was going to go to Rec, but I've just through what I've heard through the community, like I have never teamed with Skies, but I've heard that Skies is kind of like the same way. Like he kind of has attitude issues and like he kind of like wants to be like in that leadership role, not to bash Skies at all. And I think Skies has really bought into the system from what I've heard on DZ, and that's really good.
Okay.
And I think Skies is an amazing player, and I knew that his fragging ability was probably what DZ was after. Like he was extremely strong on entry, and like he was going to make them that's they wanted more consistency, I think, on entry and on land, because I didn't have the best stats at land, just to say that.
I mean, at the very least, in that Navi game against or like at Tokonami, I think everyone can kind of look at that as an example of it being, well, I mean, you were good up until that point, and then that game happens, then just fall off.
Yeah, that people really only see like what they want to see. People won't actually go back. If they actually care, they'll go back and they'll look. Like Nyx actually like didn't play that bad. Like he actually had pretty good stats. Like, and I think like it's all just about perspective. If we ended up winning Japan, no one would be talking about my performance.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if a whole bunch of people talk about, G2 or Empire's performance back when they win majors, right? It's kind of the same thing.
Exactly. And Japan was an event that we definitely could have won. We were the worst team that day, and that's how it was.
Yeah.
But to talk about Skies, I think Skies is a really good player, and I think they saw his abilities, and they saw his potential, and they ended up just wanting to go with it because, like I said, they wanted to trade me for a little bit. So
yeah, I get it. What was your thoughts about moving to Reciprocity when that trade offer came across the table?
So initially, right, when I got the offer, when Zach told me like, hey, you have a trade offer to go to Reciprocity, the way that they framed it was kind of weird. They said like, if you want to take the trade offer, it's your decision, but if you want to stay on DarkZero, it's also your decision. So you have the ability to stay on DarkZero if you want. That's what they told me, and I was like, okay. I was like, I want to stay on DZ then. And then they're like, okay, cool. And then like 20 minutes later, they're like, oh, never mind. Like the decision's not yours. Like you're going to rec. And I was like, okay, like why would you guys give me like the ability to like make a decision? It was just weird. Like I don't know why they gave me the ability to make a decision, then to take it away. But
okay.
I went to Reciprocity, and I think I was excited because it was a new team. Reciprocity was like at the time third place NA, or even second. No, they were third because they didn't make it to oh, they did make, yeah, they were second.
No, I was going to say, they were.
yeah. So trying to think of everything. Yeah, they were the second place team in NA at the time. And I was really excited because it wasn't like a big downgrade. You know what I mean? I wasn't like getting traded to a seventh place team or a team that placed not even top 4. So I was like, okay, like I can work with this. Like I'm excited to see what we can do. Ended up going there, and just like in the very beginning, like it was a weird transition because I got cut, and like that same night, like Hot and Cold was like playing ranked with Skies, and like I was playing like ranked with like the Reciprocity guys, and then we like ended up playing each other in ranked. Like,
oh no!
It was like weird, and they were like, yeah, it was just funny. Like it was just funny. So, and I had to like stay in the DZ house for like a week and a half while the trade was like going through, and like that was kind of weird because like I just like didn't talk to him for like a week because I wasn't on the team anymore. So I was just like sitting in my room on my PC for like 8 hours a day, just like doing nothing. And I was like, oh, well, this is great.
Oh boy, that sucks a little bit, right?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when it comes to you finally managed to move into the Reciprocity house in Vegas. Talk a little bit about how everything went to start with. Maybe we can get into more of the details on the IGLing and all the rest of the strats and whatnot later. But when it comes to just how like the first like week to 2 weeks went at the rec house, how did that go?
From my point of view, it went really well. I moved in, and I immediately like the very first person that I knew I was going to like on the team was Retro. Me and Retro, and that's why Retro and I'm really glad that Retro and I are on Disrupt together now, because Retro is like one like through. I hope he has the same good things to say about me. Obviously, I think he does. But through the time that we spent on Reciprocity going into Disrupt, like me and him have developed like a really close connection to each other, and like I really like Retro as a player and as a person. I think he's an awesome guy.
Sweet.
So I definitely think that was the person I kind of like gravitated towards the most on rec. But like going into the first week, like scrims were like looking really good. I was connecting well with the players. I think like it was definitely weird because like I never imagined being on Reciprocity. Like, whenever you think of like rosters that you're going to join, like you can think like, oh, I might go there. Like Reciprocity was never a roster. It's like, oh, I might go play for rec one day. It was kind of, so like going into that, like that team was weird because I didn't really like think my personality and their personality like really meshed, and I think that caused issues down the line.
Got it. But was that one of those scenarios where they were like a good enough roster to the point that you were like, man, I would like it would be like a dream to play for these guys?
Of course, yeah. Skill level was never a question. It was more so just about personality conflicts.
Gotcha. And was that something that you kind of figured might be an issue, like going into it? Is that what you were saying? Like,
yeah. I was saying like thinking about going into rec, like when I was making the trade, like I thought that personality wise, like when I got offered like the trade on DZ, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they told me like, hey, you can go to rec. Like in my brain immediately, I was like, personality wise, like I don't think it would work. But and I think later down the line, like when I was on rec, it caused issues. In the beginning, it didn't.
Okay, got it. I didn't know if that was something you like had developed over time, or if you kind of went into a new team going, you know what, hey, all good, fresh, clean slate. We'll figure things out when we get there, sort of idea, or if there was something else that went into it. Okay,
right.
So we can talk a little bit about kind of where that rift first started. Just for a timeline perspective, the Tokonami finals happened at the beginning of November of last year, and then you guys had to prep going into the United States Finals LAN event that was happening again in Vegas just about a month to maybe like 5 weeks afterwards. So that's the first time you guys have LAN experience that you can work off the rest of one another. Still in a team house environment, so it's not a crazy change in terms of like the intimacy with which you're working with everybody on the squad. So hopefully like that wasn't too crazy. When it comes to that USN preparation, hadn't played any like Pro League matches before then, so USN is kind of like your first time to see how you guys do. How did that preparation go for you guys as a squad, and how you were transitioning into how they work?
Yeah, so like I said, scrims going into the first 2 weeks, I'd say, of Reciprocity, like we're going surprisingly well. So we all, we got Vert. And me and Vert were kind of playing like the entry roles. Like I was on entry, and then Vert was like on second entry on like Zofia. And like going into scrims, like for the first 2 weeks, like I think we were slapping teams. Like we were playing really well. And then something like I don't really know what happened, but like something like switched where the last week going into scrims for USN, like we were not playing well. Like going into USN, we did not have good scrims. We had very, very, very bad scrims going into USN, which was troublesome because obviously this is our first event as a team. It was worrisome for me because I've never played at LAN with these guys. I don't know how they play at LAN. I don't know how they are at LAN, and our scrims going into it were, mediocre. So it was definitely a scary event to go into.
Okay, but when it came to where you guys ended up placing at USN, going second overall, I mean, to SSG would win the whole thing, and then would win the Invitational, so that kind of takes the sting off of it a little bit. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry. If you had a point there, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like, it was we placed second at that event because the second that we started playing on LAN, we started playing like the scrims that we were doing 2 weeks into, right? Does that make sense? Like, we were playing, we weren't even making the mistakes that we were making going into the event. We were playing like we were playing when we first made the team. I don't really know what caused that switch. It was like, it just happened, and we were playing super well on LAN, and that's why we got second. So
yeah, I think there was something I was talking about because I did a review video after that whole thing was over with, and I think one thing I mentioned is that the rec lineup at that time looked really, really, really good. Now, there was the caveat of it being, I mentioned this to FoxA as well a couple days ago, it being more of a glorified scrim because teams had just made some roster acquisitions. It was the first time some of them were ever playing on LAN. Some of them were playing with subs. I remember TSM had Timsy at the time, and they weren't playing with Pojo. So it was all like one big... I mean, it's kind of a LAN, right? So it's not something that you would necessarily have to take seriously, but it looked like you guys definitely were. And coming out of that, even though the grand final result didn't go the way that you guys were looking for, from an outside perspective, I thought it looked really good. What were your final thoughts after you were done with the event?
Oh, 100%. It was extremely good. We talked about it as a team. We talked about it as a team after we lost to SSG. Obviously, we're like, hey, like obviously it really fucking sucks to lose to SSG, but but like we got second at an event that our scrims going into it weren't that great. We've only been a team for like maybe 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. And like we took second at an event that had pretty good talent. Like, going into that event, like their TSM, like still, even though they had Timsy, like that's not a team like that just like shrug off. Like that's
Right.
still like a team that could definitely like make waves, like and like make win games. So I was proud of like how we played, and we definitely weren't like distraught on the loss. So.
Sweet. So everything coming out of USN, really only good vibes. You have a few things to fix, but at that point, all up and up, right?
100%, yeah.
All right. So now we head into the first part of Season 11 of Pro League, which then eventually leads into the Sixth Invitational about 2 months after USN. So this whole time period would have to be where something fell off the rails with how Reciprocity went. You kind of want to walk through how that happened?
Yeah, that's fine. So I think the main issue with what happened on Rec and the reason that I ended up getting cut was because of me and Fox's, like, we always would butt heads. Like, me and Fox were the guys that would always just like have issues with each other. Now, issues isn't the right word. Like, I don't have any issues with Fox, but like we would just butt heads in terms of like in-game decisions.
Okay.
So I listened to Fox's interview, and I heard him talk about certain stuff about how like I wanted to, kind of take the leadership role, and I kind of wanted to IGL, and I kind of wanted to touch on that because it's like I kind of disagree with that in the sense that there was where going into Invite, we actually like I had a one-on-one meeting with Fox without any influence. No one told me to do this. I didn't have conversations with coach. It was 100% my decision.
Okay.
Where I had a conversation with him, and I was like, "Hey Fox, like I'm taking a step back. Like I'm not IGLing. Like you have the IGL role. I don't give whatever the calls are. I'm listening to the calls. Like I felt like me and him were like butting heads, and that was causing issues in game, and like in terms of like what we wanted to run. So I was like, I told myself, I was like, I'm taking a step back. You make the calls, and I just gave him full leadership of the IGL. So when he said that I was trying to take control of IGLing, I took that as just like inherently wrong because I told him like I'm giving you control of IGL, like that you can have it. I'll just play entry, and like that's what we did.
But leading into the Invitational for that first half of the Pro League season, trying to transition into what you mentioned on DarkZero, where you wanted to see if you couldn't offer up some additional strats, if you couldn't voice your opinion a little bit more. Even though you did for the Invitational say I will relinquish IGL control, when it came to all the time spent prior to that, did you still think that it was? I mean, he mentioned there was something about a co-IGL role between the two of you, at least for that Pro League season.
That's what we tried doing in the beginning. Like we were at USN we were co-IGLing, and that at Invite we weren't. At Invite it was just him.
Okay.
So it was something like in that, and what he says in that aspect, 100% true. We were co-IGLing at USM. We were co-IGLing, in practice, and then up to the point where I was like, I'm gonna relinquish like my abilities, like me co-IGLing. Like I want you to full IGL. I'll focus on shooting people.
Okay. So when it came to all the stuff that you were doing leading into Invite prep, I mean, even Invite prep, did you specifically dial back on the IGL role like before Invite games like even started in the group stage? Like you're already in Montreal and you pull them aside and you say that, or did you say that before you even flew out?
No, I said that before. Like I said that. I mean, I would have to. I'm just guessing, but I maybe a month before Invite.
Well, okay, so it wasn't like at Invite proper.
No. It was like a month before Invite.
All right. So, but at that point, I think you were trying to maybe adapt more of the what you mentioned on DZ, and then trying to take it more into the rec play space. So am I miscategorizing that by saying like wanting to take some of the things you couldn't do on DarkZero and trying to adapt it to the way that rec was doing things?
No, I definitely agree because one thing I kind of want to touch on, and Fox kind of touched on this, is that I'm a young player, right? I'm only 19 right now.
Yeah.
And I think Fox is a young player too. If I'm not mistaken, Fox is also 19.
I think he might have a couple more years.
I thought he was 19, but
one sec. This is one of those times when we look up Wikipedia and then FoxA doesn't like DM me later and go, bro, I'm not 19.
Right. I like I said, I probably should know that because I teamed with him, but I thought he was 19.
I'm just doing one quick check. The man clocks in at a royal 22.
22?
Wait, hold on. It says age 22, but he was born in 98. I was born in 99 and I'm 21. Nope, nope, I got my math right. That
got it.
That is all right. 22. All right. Sorry, FoxA.
No,
I don't want to miscategorize it.
Got you. So yeah, he's older than me for sure. I was mistaken. I thought he was younger, but whatever. He's it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He made points about how I'm a young player and I'm still developing and I'm growing, and I definitely agree with that.
Obviously, the way in which you guys went out in groups was disappointing, and I told FoxA this. Rec was the only team that went positive on round count, but still lost out in groups, which I think speaks a lot to just how hard you guys were playing, and it really only seemed as though it came down to like maybe a couple of very minor mistakes. You guys probably could have come out on top of BDS, in that game on border, provided like a couple of things had gone, much, much better. And that's just from an outsider's perspective. So without going into Rec looking for a different way to move a different player in, or trade talks or cutting or anything like that, if you were to just analyze your performance at the Invitational, how do you think you did with all of this conflict taken into account?
I wasn't happy with my performance at Invite as a player. Just the way that I played at Invite, I think I made a lot of mistakes. I know FoxA thinks that I made a lot of mistakes, and us as a team, we should have 2-0'd out of groups. We should have 2-0'd out of groups. We should have beaten G2. They G2 beat us first map, fair and square. They beat us. We 7-0'd next map, and then on border we absolutely threw. Yeah. Border is a map that I like. In that game, I just don't even want to think about.
Don't want to revisit that.
And I think that game we lost as a team. That game, everyone made mistakes. FoxA had the situation where he smoked the guy front door and then didn't see the guy prone on the ground. There was a round where Uno went downstairs and shot the guy through the floor because none of us were we had 3 dead teammates and none of us were on cams. We had another round where we were attacking bathroom and Vert was trying to fight this guy courtyard, and we didn't help Vert even though FoxA was telling us go help Vert and trade, and we I don't know what was happening, but all of those rounds happened back to back to back to back, and after that we just after the third time happening we're what the hell are we doing, this game was in our fingers and now it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then going into BDS, I guess the next game was Wildcard. Going into Wildcard, not to undermine them as a team or anything. I was very impressed with Wildcard's performance at Tokoname. I think a lot of people were. I remember watching Wildcard play against Navi, and I actually just recently rewatched this VOD legitimately a few days ago, just because I was bored and I wanted to watch VOD. Sure, boring as that sounds. But they played very well. Wildcard played extremely well against them. Wildcard was the only team at Tokoname to take a map off Navi.
Right.
And they were the only team to almost beat them. Clubhouse went 8-7 last map.
Yeah, they were literally a point away from beating the team that would be
that won.
Yeah.
So Wildcard was not a team to underestimate. We prepped them. We, just like we did every team, we VOD watched that night. We prepped them. We came into the match super confident, and we played well, and we ended up winning. Next game was against BDS, and I think against BDS, that's kind of where things kind of went downhill. My performance against the BDS game, I really made a lot of mistakes on bank where I was pushing things that I shouldn't have been pushing. I went down the stairs one round where we definitely could have closed out the game. It was a round where it was 6-4, and Alems ended up hitting a double kill C4 on Retro and I. And so stuff like that, really just mediocre mistakes, and I was really disappointed in how I played that game. People will shit on me for it, but trust me, I shit on myself for it.
Yeah, I mean, so many people are already their own biggest critic, right? So it's not like you needed anyone else to tell you what you already knew, and you're the one who lost the game, so obviously you will feel worse than a Rec fan who feels bad for you guys for losing. So
exactly, yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So we ended up losing to BDS, a game that another series that I think was a little bit different than the G2 series in the sense that I don't think we really inherently lost it as a team. It was more so individual mistakes, and I'll take a lot of blame for that loss. But yeah, I definitely think we could have won that series as well.
Okay. Let's get into something that I know probably might have stirred up some people the wrong way after the FoxA interview came out, and this is kind of a chance where you can just respond and without trying to stir up any additional drama as well.
Right.
So after going out in groups, there were people who, according to FoxA, were apparently the word had spread even though the team may have made the call to say, you know what, I think Nyx isn't going to work out, but they hadn't said anything at that point. But there were still people who were mentioning, hey, Nyx says that he's getting cut, or something along that line, from what FoxA mentioned. What truth is there to that?
Okay, so this is something I'm really glad you brought up, something I really wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no fucking idea where that rumor started. I want to say, like right now, 100%. One, the words Nyx is getting cut never left my mouth. I never told anyone that I was getting cut ever. So when I started getting DMs from Lax and Fox saying like, hey Nyx, why are you telling people I'm getting cut? Like I literally have the DM, so I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like I haven't said anything. And then there was the other drama between me saying that I wanted to like cut Fox and like pick up another player.
Yeah.
That is another just straight out lie. I never said anything about Fox. I never said that I wanted to cut Fox. I never did any of that. I never said any of that. Why would like that kind of blows my mind because Fox literally had like top 5 stats at the event. Like why would I say I wanted to cut a player that had like top 5 stats? It's like saying like I wanted to he played super well. Like why would I want to cut him? And like there was no reason for me to say like any of that. Like I definitely think I don't know where that rumor started, but it's just not true.
Nothing, I mean, not to get super personal in an area where I probably don't need to be, but not like just personal discussions with people about where you think you might go after, you know, reciprocity, if like maybe you kind of had a feeling you were on the outs with the team kind of thing. Does like nothing that you could have like said that could potentially have been misconstrued?
The only way that I can possibly see that somebody like may have took like let me just say this, if I did say something, it was extremely misconstrued in the sense that I never said that I was getting cut, and I never said that like FoxA was getting cut. We were maybe having discussions about like dream rosters or about like where you would go if you weren't on this team. But like people have those conversations all the time. It's not like I want to go play for that team. It's like if you were in Europe, like what team would you play for, Nyx? Like, oh, I don't know. Like I would want to play for G2. Like it's not like me saying like, oh, Nyx is gonna go to G2. It's like, no, like if I lived in Europe and had the opportunity, I'd go play for G2, but I play for Rec. Like I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
So I really think a lot of like the conversations at Invite were kind of misconstrued. You know, it's an event where after like people are, you know, drinking and having fun and talking and socializing, and things can get misconstrued all the time. So I don't know. I think it was just a rumor that got out of hand.
Okay, and there was never a point maybe during the course of Invite, during the playoffs or the stage matches or anything, like for the other week that you still have to like be at the event after you've already lost and you have to watch these other teams play Siege. Nothing over the course of that where you may have like talked to the guys on Reciprocity and mentioned, hey, I don't think this is working out, or any talks with team leadership or management saying, or like asking, hey, like what's my next step or something like that. Like, did any conversations like that ever happen?
I mean, I may have had conversations with like Redeemer at the time. I was really close with Redeemer, and I may have had conversations with him like about like wanting to improve. Like I was like maybe I was like worried, like maybe like, so first of all, conversations within like Reciprocity's like coaching staff and like the players itself like shouldn't cause rumors or drama outside of like our team, you know what I mean? Like
sure, yeah.
Like so if I'm talking to Redeemer and I'm like, hey, like I'm kind of worried that I'm gonna get cut because like my performance in the BDS game and like, you know, whatever it may be, like I feel like my performance wasn't good, like I'm worried I'm gonna get cut. Like if I did say that to Redeemer, I'm saying that to Reciprocity's coach. It's not like I'm saying it to a player on Rogue. Like that's a totally different scenario. Like I'm not out here like telling other players that I'm getting cut. Like I'm talking to my coach. Like that's different.
Okay. So after all of that, like I guess begins to circulate. This is something I was there and I didn't hear anything about, and I know that was obviously something that you would probably like want to keep like within players. And I don't even know like if 99% of people even knew that was potentially a problem until the interview with FoxA came out a couple of days ago. So
right.
I mean, to that credit, it's kind of nice that wasn't something that didn't leak to the rest of the North American scene. Change your leaks, boys. We got
exactly.
We got to mess with this culture a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay, so at that point, it's already kind of clear to the guys on Reciprocity, or like maybe they've already like made the internal decision that okay, Nyx won't work out, but then they also made the decision to bench both you and Retro at the same time. I don't know if that has anything to do with, you mentioned you were super close with him before. I know a guy that you ended up still teaming with and moving to Disrupt. Sweet, all things considered, that's great. But how did you take the news that you were getting benched? Like, when it came to their decision, what was your reaction to that?
So my biggest thing was about what Fox told me when I was getting cut. So this is kind of where I had an issue with kind of my time on Reciprocity and kind of just the way that they go about things, is because FoxA sat me down and I had a feeling that it was coming, right?
Sure.
And he told me, hey, like, hey, Nyx, like, you're a great player. It's a business decision, like, yada, yada, all this, and, all the stuff that people usually say when you're getting cut.
Yeah.
But then he told me that no matter what I did on this roster, I was cut from day one. He told me that no matter if I played super well at USN, I was cut from day one. No matter what I did, I was going to eventually get cut off this roster, period. Because they didn't want me. Like, FoxA talked about me being thrown in and talked about how I had to adapt. And it's because they never wanted me as a player. They wanted Slash. And I think me just getting traded for Skies to Rec was like just like it was like just kind of like a hiccup in their plan. And so like I kind of was like, I took that like definitely hard, because like I felt like it kind of like is retro.
Hey, Alex.
I took that kind of hard, because I felt like what was the point of like bringing me on? Like, I guess not bringing me on, but what was the point of like doing all this for 3 months just for you to tell me that like it was a waste of time? Like, I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
That's fair. And I can definitely see how you would think it's ultimately down to perception whenever someone mentions something like that. So from your perspective, I absolutely understand how that's something that you could take away from that conversation. But even though you weren't like formally like gone, but you were still able to like seek out opportunities with other teams. You were still trying to like figure out like what your next step was.
Yeah. Also, I just want to preface it with like, I don't have any beef with like Fox. Me and Fox have talked.
I was about to ask.
Since then. Okay. Me and Fox have talked also like somewhat recently. I have said some things that I should not have said. He has said some things that he should not have said. We've apologized to each other. We have no beef with each other.
Okay.
Me and him are friends, and I want everyone to know that is watching this interview. Like, I don't want anything that I say to negatively reflect Fox. Esports is a business thing, and if they personally did not want me on the team, like, that's cool. Like, they didn't want me. They felt like Slash is a better fit to their team. I wish them nothing but the best with Slash, and I wish them, the best luck in this upcoming season. I don't have any bad beef towards them, and I don't have any bad beef towards any of the Reciprocity guys.
And it's still something that you can take away from. It's anything within an industry like this is still definitely a learning experience. So you can still look at that time and be like, that's okay. We'll take this, learn from it, and just keep going.
Definitely. I don't want to say my time at Reciprocity was a waste of time in any way, shape, or form, because it definitely wasn't. I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from those guys. They taught me a lot as a player, and I appreciate them I appreciate the time that I spent with them on the roster for sure.
Okay, sounds good. Was there anything else like specifically like from the interview that you wanted to like touch on? I know I've tried to hit most of the major points that you probably would have wanted to mention or clear up or something, but if there's anything else that you'd like to offer your side on.
We would be kind of backtracking, but the only other thing that really comes to my mind would be when Fox was like, oh, like Nyx, like he's like, we're a family team, and like Nyx like really didn't want to like come out with hang out with us and stuff like that at Invite.
Okay.
And like that, like the only thing nothing even to say, like my family was at Invite. Like my dad, my mom, and my grandma flew down to Montreal to watch me play, and I didn't even make it out of groups. So I was spending time with them. No,
that's fair. And I think I've heard from Ofama in the interview we did with him about 2 weeks ago, where he was like, they also had a group chat, and it's like, well, after losing, do you want to come out or do you just want to like stay in your room, like things like that. Like, that seems like pretty standard like team communication from what everyone's told me these past couple days. So if you didn't want to go, then he also mentioned it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, I just kind of felt like it was just kind of like a weird thing. It was like, it was just
sure. But whatever. At the end of the day, when it comes to Reciprocity, might not have been a phenomenal experience, but still something that you can take away from, and there's not an issue that you have with anybody within the org or on the team. Everything at this point is cool, right?
100%.
Sweet. Okay. So Reciprocity opts to bench both you and Retro at the same time. And I remember I made a video on this actually happening and then popped into your stream later just going, hey, how's it going? Just like good luck wherever you end up going. And then I remember that you said on stream, it's like, hey, I didn't tell you this, but you could have also made the potential connection that why would Retro and I split up? Why wouldn't we just stick together? I remember you telling me this on stream at one point, and all this time later,
I was kind of like hinting. I was hinting.
Yeah, I took a little bit of that away. Yeah,
it's because when Retro and I got cut, him and I like took it as like a duo. Like me and him talked to each other, and we were like, hey, like, do you want to try staying together? And I was like, yeah, like we should definitely try staying together. So like the plan to like stay together with from was like a thing that we discussed from day one. Like that wasn't something that just like happened. Like we planned it.
Yeah, but so it wasn't. I think it didn't really hit me as a surprise when I ended up hearing about the DG change later. But I did think it was cool that two elements of the same cog that still had an okay performance at the Invitational, still being able to move into a new squad that wasn't like completely foreign, because there were at least two people from a previous team that still knew each other, still knew like how you guys played and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. Now that we have, DG's actually like been announced, and we had a full 5 at one point, heading into what would eventually become Disrupt's new team for the North American League. Talk a little about that transition, how Disrupt came to you guys, mentioned the guys that they wanted to try to trial out and form up for this new squad. How did that come about?
Yeah, so like I said, Retro and I were trying to stay together, but obviously, like, if we had opportunities on different teams, like, we would take the opportunities. So, like, I know Retro had tryouts with specific teams. I'm not going to say who, and I had tryouts with specific teams, and I'm not going to say who, but it ended up just like not working out. Like the team that I was trying out for, they ended up picking up another player, and then same with the team that Retro was trying out for, they ended up picking up another player. So we were kind of like at that time, like I was in such a bad mental state as a player, because like I had no options. Every pro team was like full, and I had no options. So in my brain, I was like, I'm going to CL. Like I have to go play CL. So me and Retro started playing on a CL team with a few other CL players, and we were actually scrimming for like maybe 2 days. And that's when I got the DM from Cash, and he's like, "Hey, are you available to talk?" And I was like, "Okay, I don't know what this is about, but let's talk." And then he told me that they're interested in building a roster around Retro and I. They want us to have control of the roster. They want us to basically, they're saying, go pick up 3 players. This is going to be our roster. So Retro and I obviously jumped at this opportunity, and we were extremely excited.
Yeah.
Immediately, like Retro and I were just like, we were like for 2 hours just like going through a list of like, okay, we can get this guy, 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 just going like through like who our best options are. We definitely didn't just like think like, oh, we should pick up that guy. Like it was a process where we like went through, looked at everyone's stats, looked at all their VODs, like had one-on-one conversations with these guys. Like we made sure we were doing it right.
All right.
And we ended up coming to the conclusion that we wanted to pick up Shuttle, who was playing on Run It Back at the time. Shuttle is an amazing Shuttle was like, side note, so good. Shuttle was so good.
And he had his previous pro league experience on Rogue for the good time, but they still had a North American team, but then didn't have a squad. So then he was on that Run It Back's team that didn't end up making Challenger League after all.
Right. Run It Back was like the team that was like predicted to win CL.
Yeah.
Like they were, and then they just lost, and they were like, oh, like, okay, well, we might as well get Shuttle then. Like that's a night. Yeah. So we got Shuttle, and then we ended up like trialing with Reed. And Reed like wasn't even like the person that like we were like with Shuttle, like we just picked up Shuttle, like we knew we wanted Shuttle. Okay. And then with Reed, like we like trialed, and then we trialed Reed, and then like after the first trial, like we didn't even like, it was kind of unfair because like after we trialed Reed, he played so well, and like we knew we wanted Reed, that like his trial just eventually turned into like him just getting picked up. Like we didn't even trial anyone else, like we just picked up Reed because we knew that we wanted Reed.
Okay.
After we played with them. So then we had our 4 with Shuttle, me, Retro, and Reed, and we were kind of trying to figure out who was going to be our 5th. For our 5th, we trialed actually like 6 different people, and ended up making the decision to go with Yardy, because Yardy in his tryout played exceptionally well. We felt like this was a guy that was hungry. He was young. He had talent. And Disrupt kind of told us that the philosophy that they wanted to adopt was like they wanted to have experience with like Retro and I, so that's why they're building the roster on us, because obviously him and I are very experienced in like Pro League.
Yeah.
But then they wanted to pick up, like, in their words, a young gun, because they think a young gun is like they wanted to like picking up like on mousing about like a Hyper or like a Bolo, like one of those like young gun players that ends up becoming super good. So that's kind of the philosophy that they wanted to adopt, and we felt like Yardy kind of fit that.
All right. And I mean, I can see why they would go for Yardy, someone who's already qualified for Pro League at one point under 92 Dream Team, who later became Luminosity, but that was after he was no longer with the squad. He's already proven himself. He's already won CL. I can see why you would definitely like run with that. So that 5 is the 5 that like you didn't have anybody else in like I guess like a long-term stay aside from those 5 for like the entirety that roster was a thing. There wasn't anybody else who was in for like a period longer than a trial run, right?
Yeah, so I want to make sure everyone that's watching this understands what the time frame of this is. Okay. You guys may think that the like based off of the roster announcement. Okay. Like I don't know when the roster announcement was. I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks, maybe
something like that.
when it was something like that, right? Okay. We were a team for like 2 months before the announcement. Like we've been a roster. Like it wasn't like this brand new roster that got announced and then like that was it. Like we've been playing and scrimming for like a month and a half straight. So we knew like we had experience with scrimming and like playing as a team.
It didn't just kind of come out of the blue. They're just like, oh well, we're signing these 5 ragtag people without a team kind of thing. It wasn't like that.
No, exactly. It was a very like practiced and very like thought out like thing.
Okay, and I remember there was a time a friend of mine hit me up and said, hey, these guys are playing bread baggers in like ESA quals or something. I remember a long time ago, because he was a caster for it. And I remember looking at that going, okay, here's a first look at it. But I took that as, I mean, it's a streamed thing. It doesn't have a massive audience, but I looked at that and went, this looks like they're just like playing it like a scrim. And they're not trying to do anything super serious, because I think you guys probably could have run the table on, that team or that like qualifier league if you wanted to, but you ended up losing the game. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Probably shouldn't make a big deal out of this, because it just looks like they're trying to find a different way to prepare.
No. Okay. So, I mean, we can discuss that. So let's just say it was a mistake from first of all. Okay.
Okay.
So us as a team, we talked about it because we didn't have any match experience as a team, right? Going into Pro League, which is in a few weeks, we don't have experience going into any matches. We haven't played a match, right?
Right.
And we only have scrims for like, we've been scrimming for like, if we're counting the time going up into Pro League, we'd be scrimming for like something like 4 months straight with no match experience. So we were like, I thought it'd be like good experience. Like, even if it's not like that good of a team, like you'd be playing against like, at least like it's in like it's streamed, you're getting like some kind of experience, right? That was my thought process behind it.
Yeah.
Some of the teammates, some players in the team, they were hesitant to wanting to do it because it was streams. They didn't want to show strats. They felt like it would just be like a waste of time, more beneficial just to scrim.
Sure.
So it was kind of like a hesitant decision, but then we ended up like pulling the trigger, but I felt like we kind of pulled the trigger and doing it, but like not everyone was like fully committed. So it was kind of like a thing where like people didn't want to play, but like they said they would. And it just turned into like us not really even trying. And like we were it's so hard to like kind of like word it, because like we were trying, but at the same time we weren't. And like, as you said, we probably could have smoked those guys if we wanted to, but we didn't want to like show all of our stuff. And then like, it was just a big waste of time. And after that's why we like directly after that game, after we lost, we were just like, all right, that was a waste of time. Let's not do that. Let's go back to scrimming. And that was it. And that was it. So
I just remember that was a thing that came across my radar, and there was admittedly a part of me that wanted to be like, to just take a screenshot of it and put it on Twitter and just put like there was like I was so close to doing it, because this was the first time that we had seen this roster come out, and again, this was a good 2 months before DG had ever made an announcement about it. So to figure out like where these guys were going, all of them have some Pro League pedigree. with the exception of Drip, because Drip had only just won CL. He had never played a Pro League game, but Reed at that point was still EU stand-in, so he also had PL experience at that point.
Yeah. I definitely would say that had no reflection of how good we could be as a team. That was if you want to look at what that reflected us trying at like 10%. Like that was that was like us like just trolling. And I don't know why we did it. I don't know why we played in it. Thinking back at it, like, hindsight, like it was a waste of time. And I apologize to ESA for wasting their time. But,
that's fair.
It was an experience.
I mean, hey, if nothing else, it got my friend who was casting the game to just get super excited. Like, oh my God, like Reed and Nyx and everyone else is here. I'm like, dude, just chill. Nothing will probably end up coming from this. It's all right.
It's just going to be us making a fool of ourselves. That's it, man. Like, don't worry about it.
All right. Let's move into a little bit of recent Disrupt. And this is a topic I already know straight out of the gate is probably just going to attract controversy because of what we're talking about. And the fact that before this interview comes out, there may have been an official announcement, there may not have been, but I'm just kind of accepting that this is the first time that this will be talked about, like, officially and publicly. But it is something that we should probably dive into just because of the people involved and what this means for DG moving forward.
Right.
We obviously haven't had anything to work with from you guys. We haven't had any gameplay. We obviously can't, like, look at what your scrims look like because you don't want to go too much into your NAL prep. So all we can really do is go from team gets announced, has 2 months of a time span, and now Yardy is no longer on DG.
Right.
What, I guess, without going into too many details, without making it personal in any way that we can, what can you explain about wanting to pick up Drip, a young gun, and now him no longer having a presence with DG?
So, this is a situation where just in speaking in like recent terms, it's definitely negatively like impacted, like not like negatively impacted us, but like the fallout of it, like all the drama and stuff on Twitter, just saying like, oh, like what is DG doing? Like, why did they make that decision? Like, why? Like, and then somehow like it got turned onto like me. Like everyone felt like I was the reason that Yardy got cut.
Yeah.
Which was definitely weird. All I can say really about the situation is like Drip is a really good player in his own ways, and it just wasn't what we needed in a player. Like he just wasn't making the right decisions that we needed to make. He wasn't making the right calls that he needed to make. He just was making a lot of mistakes, right? And keep in mind when people say like, oh, you cut Yardy before a Pro League game, like you didn't even give him his opportunity to play a Pro League game. Like I agree, like that does suck, but Disrupt is an organization that is very set in their ways, and they do not let you make roster changes without it being a process. Like this wasn't something that it was like, oh, I want to cut Yardy. Okay, let's do it. We cut Yardy. It's like we literally talked about this for 2 months. Like I pulled Yardy aside multiple times, and I had one-on-ones with him. I was like, hey, Yardy, like I really need you to improve in this aspect. I really need you to like, watch these VODs and like, make sure that you're improving. And I was like, let's work one-on-one together to make sure that you're constantly improving at a good rate. And then we had multiple sessions with like Disrupt as the organization where like the owners of Disrupt would come in and like as a team, like all 5 of us would talk to Yardy and we'd be like, hey, like I think you're doing good on this. I think you're doing good on this, but we would really like to see improvement in this. And that happened for like over the span of 2 months. It wasn't like a brand, like it was like, I want to reiterate, it wasn't a decision where it was like Nyx thinks we should drop Yardy, let's do it. It was a decision where through 2 months of rigorous trial and error and constant like, Yardy, you gotta do better. He didn't improve, and we thought that it'd be better for us to make it a change. Like
you were in a sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you were in a position where I think we can kind of look back at all of the time that you had spent with DZ wanting to do more IGL work, and with Rec obviously doing more IGL work. Now coming in, you still definitely had that sort of position on like within DG. You are IGL right now, right?
Yes. So I am the, me and Retro are the co-leaders of the team, and then I am the main IGL. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it came to Disrupt wanting to come to you guys and build a roster around both you and Retro, there's still something to say that you had like authority to begin with, and that's still something that can carry into what DG looks like right now for you in a position of authority, right?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. I really don't want to phrase this in a way that makes it seem like, or that dives too much into what people have been saying after Yardy unofficially dropped the news that he wasn't with DG anymore. But it does, I guess, bear something to the idea, or I mean, people probably had a reason to think that people who are in positions of leadership will obviously be the ones to look to make these kinds of changes because they're the ones that can recognize before anybody else does that there is an issue.
Right.
Was it something where you recognized that there could be a problem with the way that he fit into DG's playstyle early on, or was this something that didn't develop until you had 2-3 weeks, a month with him on the team?
So this was an issue that we actually have been trying to fix. It was an early on issue, where for every single player, no matter who the player is going to have an issue in their gameplay.
Sure.
No player is perfect, right? So from day one, we were trying to obviously tell Yardy the mistakes that he was making. Also, another thing I want to point out, when I say tell Yardy the mistakes he was making, it wasn't we were just picking on Yardy. Like I said, everyone makes mistakes. So
Sure.
The way that we go about things as a team is if I see a mistake in Yardy, I'm gonna call it out. If I see a mistake in Retro, I'm gonna call it out. We talk about mistakes as a team so that we can learn from them. That's what you do. You learn from mistakes, right?
Right.
But it seemed like Yardy wasn't listening to what we were saying, and we were telling him stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this. But what he would do, he would keep doing what we're telling him to stop doing, and literally up to the day that he got cut, he never stopped doing what we were telling him to do. He made micro improvements, but it was nothing to the degree where we thought it was needed to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So because of that, like I said, through rigorous trial and error of us telling him for over the span of maybe 3 months, more so 2, we had so much of a sample size to know that this wasn't just a one-day thing. We had so much data and scrims. We had so much of just the plays that he was making, the way that he was taking criticism, just we had all of this data that just pointed to this isn't a rush decision. This is something that we've talked about for the past 2 months. We need to pull the trigger on this because it's affecting the team.
You felt like if you had taken it into Pro League and tried to play, a season stage or maybe even a couple of games, even before giving him a chance to do that, to play at that level with the rest of you guys, you still felt like it was something you wanted to nip in the bud before it became bigger?
Exactly, because if we had all of these issues going into Pro League, keep in mind that with all of these issues, scrims were still looking okay. They weren't looking dire. It was okay.
All right.
There was some days that were better than others, obviously, but it wasn't terrible. But we knew that we can be better. So the way that Disrupt is as an organization, the way that I just am as a player is I don't settle for okay. I don't settle for just being mediocre. I want to be the best. I want to win.
Right.
I want to win a world championship. And I knew that with where we were as a team, we weren't there. And why would you wait to go lose Pro League games to make a change? That's being now you're being reactive instead of being proactive. You got to be proactive in this situation, because now if you go into Pro League and you're going down, you lose the first 4 games, and then you think to yourself oh, we could have made this change and things could have been different. Well, that's on you. Now you're just speaking in that's just a hindsight thing, and you really don't know how good you could have been.
And it wasn't like you were, like you said, you weren't just mainly meaning to pick on Yardy in a sense. Was it a situation
Right.
where you were giving him, you were telling him, hey, area of improvement here, but then you also mentioned, hey, here's what we can suggest or what we can do to help you get out of this rut of bad habit or just something that we don't like that we need you to fix. You were giving him an opportunity to go through and change it up, but not just by telling him fix it. You were being hey, here's what we can do to potentially transition you out of this habit.
Of course, I literally sat down with Yardy multiple times, and I watched his VOD with him, and I literally pointed out, I was Yardy, this is what you're doing here. I need you to change this. Hey, this is what you're doing here. I need you to change this. And I sat down with him, for countless hours going over VODs with him. It wasn't just hey, Yardy, you got to fix this, man. You got to do it. No, I showed him. I told him what he can do to fix it, and he still didn't do it.
Okay. So really, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it goes without saying, probably one of the reasons why Yardy has always been kind of a pariah within Siege, without going into anything else aside from the time spent with him on Disrupt. You can very comfortably say, and I think he could probably also comfortably say, it's a business call. It sucks that it happened the way that it happened with the timing that it did, but at the end of the day, it's just because you didn't see a way for him to mesh with DG, right?
100%. I want to make sure that everyone knows, like, I personally don't have any beef with Yardy. I can't say the same thing, like, from his point of view to me. I think Yardy probably is upset with me. And that's fine, right? Like, he can be upset with me. My opinion, it was like, this wasn't a decision where it was like Nyx made the call and now like Nyx runs the show. Like, he wanted to cut Yardy. No, this was a 100% unanimous decision as a team, including management, that was very trialed. And yeah, I wish Yardy nothing but the best, because I actually have very high hopes for him as a player. If he just improves in the areas that we've discussed, he could be so good. But the issue is that he's just not improving in those areas. And once he does, I really think he's going to be like a very good player in North America.
All right, that's fair.
So, yeah.
I think that might be all that I really wanted to kind of touch on in that part of DG, and I obviously know that you can't go too deep into who you guys have found for another fifth. I'm presuming that you've already found someone who like to fill in that role, because you wouldn't want to just go into it with this amount of time spent away from not having a fifth player. I'm pretty sure you've already got someone locked in, yeah?
I can't really say anything to like. I definitely can't say anything specifically.
Right,
I can say that I can say that we are scrimming. And let's just say results have been looking better than ever. So
sweet.
With the player that we are currently scrimming with, we have had extremely good results, and I'm super excited for Pro League.
And that feeds more into your idea of not wanting to be mediocre and still wanting to be the best. That definitely leads more towards that mindset.
100%. I think obviously I'm not gonna say like, oh, this is like we're winning invite. Like,
sure.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like it's definitely an improvement from what our scrims were like, say, a month ago.
Got it. Okay. That runs through probably most of the stuff that I was going to go through and touch on, because we had the FoxA stuff, we had more like DG transitions, and then we had Yardy. I'm trying to think of anything else that we could probably cover here, unless there was something specific that you wanted to like throw out there. Like you've got a platform, people at the end of an interview, they might not have gotten all the way back to the end of this. Anything else that you want to throw out?
I mean, we could always talk about like how everyone wants to just like label me as like an Ashe main when like I haven't played Ashe in like seasons. One's a good always.
Yeah.
That's always a good topic. But no, like that, like that's always just funny, because it's just like Nyx. Like there's so many people that like on Reddit. Like I saw this one Reddit comment, like just to make sure you're aware, it's like Reddit comments like those like that. It's just funny. Like people that are talking on like that.
Sure.
Like, it's just funny, right?
Mm-hmm,
so, there was one guy that said, this guy literally can only play Ashe Jaeger. How does he think he can IGL? And like, I remember I saw that and I was just like, first of all, I literally haven't played, like, I literally play, that's why I kind of preface it with like when I went to SK, like people forget that I literally got picked up on SK to play Maestro Echo. Like I was like my first season in Pro League, I was a support player.
Yeah. And
like that's kind of like the role that I've adopted into DG now too, is because like we have Shuttle, for example, who is an amazing player, like, and super good on entry, and then a player that I can't name is extremely good on entry. So we have two strong entry. I can definitely tell you, going into this Pro League season, you will not see me on Ashe. So
okay, all right. Is it like more of a resumption of your like previous support roles on SK, or is it more kind of like, I guess, a hybrid that you haven't tried before?
No, it's like flex. So okay. I play a lot of mute. I play a lot of just the role, a castle, stuff like that.
Got it.
And then on attack, I play basically another bunch of operators. So
yeah, but not would people say, or would it be accurate to say that if people were to go back and look at the way that you've played on either like either from an entry role or from a support role, how is there any of previous like VOD footage that can translate to the way that you're trying to adapt your playstyle for what DG is turning into?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if you go look at Reciprocity, for example, like I played Gridlock on Consulate. I played, I did play a lot of Ashe, but like another thing that I really don't understand is like if my role is an entry, like why would I not be playing Ashe? Like it's not like I'm playing hard. Like it's not like I'm playing like support and I'm playing Ashe and like I'm not like thermiting walls or something. It's like it's different. Like Nyx, like you're an entry. Like okay, I'm gonna take Ashe on entry. Like that's what my job is. Like you wouldn't give if your job was to staple papers, you're not gonna do it with tape. Like you're gonna use staples.
Right.
I'm using the best operator to do my job.
You're gonna do the tool that you really, really need to get the job done as effectively as you can. Yeah,
exactly. So I never really understood that entire argument. If you go back through countless amounts of VODs, through DarkZero, through Reciprocity, you can see that I literally don't. I mean, I played Jaeger sometimes on certain maps, but I played a lot of Castle. I played a lot of Cade. I actually think I am extremely flexible as a player, and I really don't understand where this idea that Nyx isn't flexible came from. I don't know. It kind of blows my mind, to be honest.
I guess it's more about the moments where you could probably look at like a Nyx highlight or like a Nyx error and like look at the op. Oh, he's playing Ashe. Oh, he'd be like he's playing Jaeger in this instance, and I think I remember. I don't remember exactly where it happened, but there was a time. It might have actually been like either the BDS. There was a bank game, and I don't remember if it was invite group stage or if it was in Pro League. It might have been Pro League. No, it was BDS because I specifically remember it was a play on bank. Basement bomb site. Alems is playing Cade back behind server, and there's about like a push with Retro playing Thermite. He's trying to get the diffuser all the way down blue to go for default plan as soon as he busts the wall. And there was talk about, I think this might have been a tweet from you saying like we lost because I wasn't able to like make that play happen on bank. And I think like you're playing Ashe right then, and everyone's like he's got to be like he points this play out, looks at it, he's playing Ashe. This just means that he's like trying to play entry and doing really bad, right?
I see what you're saying. You're saying that like just because of like based off of like certain performances and just like the way that I may have said things in the past and the way that I have like carried myself, it kind of reflects on those rounds and people only see. I think it definitely rounds.
Can.
Yeah. That makes sense. That definitely makes sense for sure. But like I said, people want to keep. This was like not even really like a very. I don't know. There was like really no point to even be talking about this. I just thought it was funny because if people want to think that I play Ashe Jaeger, then go ahead, man. Like I'm an Ashe Jaeger main. Let's get it. Like that's fine. Ashe Jaeger's nasty. I'll go play that any day. But I can assure you that I'm extremely flexible and I play a lot of roles. So
that's fair. And I think the best time to go through and figure out how that playstyle from SK to DZ to Rec, how all of that stuff adapts to DG is once that North American League kicks off in just a couple weeks. For some reason, we don't have an actual like start date specifically for North America. I think we're still waiting for them to announce it.
Yeah, but I mean, nothing's been publicly announced. I say a couple of weeks because I assume it's a couple of weeks. Like with everything that's going on with the pandemic and everything like that, there's chances where it may get pushed back. We really never know until something's actually announced. So we'll just got to kind of wait and see. But whenever Pro League does start, I'm really excited to get things rolling with DG. I think we're going to have a really promising season. So yeah,
and it's the ground where you guys get to prove yourself as a team and where you can kind of do what you can to, in some case, maybe even shut the haters up based on how you guys perform, not playing the same way that you would on any other squad. You're adapting to something different. This is really the place where you can go and do that. So
that's the plan. I want to say to people that are underestimating us, please keep underestimating us. We love being underestimated. We want to be the underdogs going into the tournaments and being, going into Pro League because we're going to prove people wrong. So
yeah,
I'm excited. So.
I totally believe it. All right, cool. Anything else you want to mention? Final words before we wrap everything up?
Thank you for again taking the time out of your day to to have me on. I really appreciate it, Jacob. Everyone, make sure to check out all of CaliberJacob's content. I really like Jacob. He's a really cool guy. So other than that, I wanted to give shout out to Disrupt. Thank you for for the house. Thank you for all the support that you've been giving us. We really appreciate it as players, and everyone stay posted for Pro League. We're gonna make some waves. So
all right, I'm excited. Everyone else should be excited. Nyx, awesome. Thank you very much again. We'll see you in Pro League.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks, man.